I'm Representative Gerry Pollet from the 46th District, which is north and northeast Seattle. And today we're talking about how we make our tax system more fair for the average person and make sure that wealthy corporations and individuals pay more through my role as chair of the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee. The Legislative Audit and Review Committee, JARK for short, is responsible for reviewing all the tax exemptions and preferences that the state of Washington has given to corporations over 100 years. Many of them have never been reviewed, and they keep handing money over to corporations without any review to make sure that they accomplish something that is worthwhile for the public of the state of Washington. That's our goal at JARK, to review those tax exemptions and recommend to the legislature eliminating or adding new requirements for tax exemptions that should not be in place or don't work or which could be improved. A regressive tax code means that the poor people in the state of Washington and working people pay far more as a percentage of their taxes than the wealthiest. We are one of the wealthiest states in the nation, in the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. And yet, people in the bottom 20% of income earners pay about a fifth of their income in state taxes. And the people at the top 5% and top 20%, they're only paying about 3% or 4% of their income in taxes. That's the reverse of a fair tax system, and especially when you see that there are very wealthy corporations and individuals who pay almost nothing. Indeed, there are some businesses in the state of Washington that are very profitable that literally pay no taxes to support our children's education and our health care. That's why it's important to review those tax exemptions and preferences and try to put us back on the right track for a fair tax system. The review process is really hamstrung by the legislature having adopted these tax exemptions and putting them in place forever without any sunset or review. And as we try to look at them, we ask, what is the intent of the legislature? What was the goal to be served? And for many of the exemptions, we literally find that the legislature was lobbied to give an exemption to some industry or corporation, and there's no record of what the public benefit was supposed to be. And then the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee staff is supposed to compare the exemption to the intent, but there is no intent. So they say, we can't determine if the intent is met. Often that's interpreted by legislators, especially lobbied hard by that industry, to say, well, let it continue. You can't say it didn't meet the intent. There was no intent. In 2014, the legislature tried to tackle this in legislation I was instrumental in helping to pass, saying all new tax exemptions have to say what public policy goal they're going to serve and how they should be evaluated. But after a few years, lobbyists began working the system, and those tax preference statements, as we call them, that are part of the legislation became weaker and weaker. For example, we had a tax exemption we reviewed this year about housing, and the review was asked to consider not whether we produced more housing, but whether the income of the developers went up. We care about housing, not about the income of the developers. And yet the criteria for continuing the exemption had been framed as something that wasn't a good public policy goal whatsoever. And that's what we need to change. As chair of the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee, I'm working with the legislative auditor and their staff, and I've been meeting and working with the chair of the Finance Committee and Senate Ways and Means to have the legislative auditor's staff inform the legislature about what would be meaningful criteria to determine if a proposed tax exemption actually serves the public interest. So when the tax exemption for French fries comes up, instead of saying we're not paying any taxes at all towards our children's education or health care because we're going to increase revenue, we're going to say, how are you going to increase revenue without paying any taxes? How many family wage jobs are you creating? Is that the criteria we're going to use if you're claiming a tax exemption, which is often the case? We're going to measure that now. And we're going to say, well, in 5 years, you didn't produce any new jobs. And if you did grow the industry, we're going to ask, and we can determine this through studies, whether or not giving you a tax exemption is what enabled you to grow, or would you have grown anyway and we just handed you a lot of state tax money that should have gone to our children's education or health care. To start our structural change in fixing an upside-down tax code where the poor and working people pay far more as a percentage of income than the wealthiest corporations and people in the world, we have to start with a tax on people who earn over $1 million of income a year. That's been a long time effort, and I think this year we're going to make progress towards that structural change. The second thing is we have to say the wealthiest corporations who are based here or do business here should pay their fair share. Instead of paying a very tiny amount, they should be paying their fair share and not having exemptions that don't serve any public policy purpose. If they're serving a public policy purpose, such as an exemption that actually increases state revenue, then we can prove that we're getting more state revenue by helping that industry. Or we have more family wage jobs that would not exist. But if you can't prove that, you shouldn't be taking money literally out of the mouths of our children in the state of Washington, and we have to end that.